We're
All
on.
right.
We're
Excellent.
live. We are good. All right, Talent Talk. Here we go again for the podcast. Jay Brunetti and myself, and we've got Ricky Beach, who is our manager of Edge Staffing, the tech division that we have over there, and he has with him a special guest, Andrew Mitchell from Northlight AI. Jay, you want to do any introductions of who's who and what's what?
Well, I think you just did it.
All
I
right,
don't know
fine.
if
We're
we're
done.
breaking I don't know if we're breaking rules of podcasting with having so many people on one thing, but we're gonna let it fly. But as you said, Ricky, started Edge in 2019, so 7 years into it. He's definitely the man, and Edge is the company when it comes to AI, robotics, engineering, staffing. Certainly in New England, that's for sure. So he's done a great job with that. I think part of the reason there's been so much success there is Ricky really adds a lot of value to the clients and the candidates, builds a lot of trust. Those two core threads run through the whole organization. And as a result, when it comes to that, AI robotics, Ricky's name is always in the mix, which is great news there. So with us is Andrew. So I'll let Ricky introduce Andrew.
Yep. Appreciate it, Jay. Yeah, as mentioned, so started in 2019 with a focus in AI, machine learning, data analytics, and robotics and connected devices. Primarily around the greater Boston area. We've expanded more outside of New England and nationwide over the years as many companies have gone fully remote and needing to tap into new markets to build out their team or just needing the office flexibility or whatever it may be. So everything across the board as far as full service contract to hire, direct hire, payroll solutions for companies. It'll be as cost effective as we can, especially with the startups that we work with. So partner with VCs to early stage organizations through mid-sized corporations that need both the engineering and tech talent. And with getting out and networking in the market and getting to know good people and staying localized initially as we built out from the ground up here, getting out, just getting opportunities to meet people like Andrew. So this is a kind of an organic introduction here. I'd say Andrew and I initially connected through UNH alumni. There was trending on a big article in the past, and I had just reached out to Andrew and felt like he was somebody in an organization at Northlight that would be good to know and for Edge to know, and maybe potentially some business partnerships down the line. But ultimately, just getting out, getting to know him, connecting the dots in the market, and seeing what we could do to maybe help again another early stage startup. And no business crossover, not a business partner, but a great networking opportunity and someone that now for the past few years, getting to know at events like AI in New Hampshire, and just being at the forefront of the AI space. He's been a great person to get to know, and I think we've made a lot of introductions for one another. So with that, the opportunity for Andrew to get out and make an introduction, I won't steal your shine. So if you want to give us a quick backstory on yourself, Northlight AI, and we can talk a little bit more of what's going on in the AI community and what that means for talent and businesses moving forward.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I guess as some quick background of me and kind of how I got here, I worked in higher education for close to 15 years, University of New Hampshire, which again, Ricky, we've connected through some of the alumni stuff. I kind of did all sorts of different roles. I did some teaching, I did some administrative stuff, and then I later on, towards the end of my career at UNH, I moved over to help launch and stand up the Center for Business Analytics over there, which sort of the quick and dirty version of what that is it's kind of like a consulting type agency, except with students and faculty working on these projects. So students get some hands-on real experience, and the companies that they work for, you know, get a more affordable rate than say the Deloittes and the Accentures of the world. So big piece on experiential learning, and that whole time I was always interested really in analytics, and I became more and more interested, more and more passionate about AI. But this is just my personality. I needed to move quicker than maybe higher education or some of these institutions could really move. So I honestly just decided one day I'm going to do it. And I founded Northlight AI with actually three others. So two of them, Dr. Coleg Webo, he's a professor still at UNH, decision sciences. Peter Zames, who I think you actually met, Ricky. He came down with me to the Red Sox game.
That was a good
Um,
team.
yeah,
Remember that?
and and then another Dr. Ruzba Gashimi, who engineer MBA. And so what I'm getting at is the best thing I did was hire people way, 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 way smarter than me. And it's made all the difference, as they say. And yeah, we've been going, and I'm happy to dive in about really anything with Northlight AI and what we do, what we're trying to do. And I'm also just curious to hear from you all about what you're seeing in the space in terms of hiring and placements and all of that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good starting point if you want to give us a higher level overview, give you a chance to talk to businesses, what you guys are offering as far as a service. And again, we can dive into what you're seeing and how that looks for the talent pool. And
Yeah. So I would say if we broke it down into two main categories, one is training and development. So our big belief is that the reason why AI projects tend to fall flat or not deliver value is less about the technology and more about the fact that you can't just have like one training session and expect a whole culture to change or expect workflows to change or expect adoption to really happen. So for us, it was kind of one thing we learned is if we're going to be working on these AI projects, some of which I'll get into, we have to make sure that the organizations we're working with have sort of real expectations of what they can do immediately, what they can do midterm, and what they can maybe do long term. Because we were joking about it a little before, but AI is a buzzword now, right? It's like it's everywhere, and yet it's almost nobody really knows specifically what we mean when we talk about AI. There's so many different ways we could go there. So um, a big piece is that training and development. We offer an AI Essential Certificate program through the University of New Hampshire. We do training actually at a lot of schools, K through 12. We're finding that schools and especially teachers have some really, really good insights and skepticism, truthfully, about AI that we've liked partnering with them. But then sort of our big, I guess you'd say bread and butter is we do sort of rapid building of prototypes and we build really focused products based on the need of our clients. So that could be as small as a 1 or 2 person nonprofit or small business up to our biggest project right now is with the New Hampshire Aerospace and Defense Consortium, as well as NASA, on a major, major supply chain project that was congressionally funded, and we're kind of working through that piece. So that's truthfully why I started. Like, I love the idea that I can work with a group like NASA or like a nonprofit and a small business. And
When
and
you're walking into some of these clients you're talking to, especially when you're talking about the teachers,
yeah,
how do you avoid a big chunk of your time explaining to them what the hell AI is? I
yeah,
mean, because you're not walking into some of these places where they're necessarily adopting AI and saying, "Oh, let's bring it in." Some, especially, element, they may not even know how to play with it, other than
right.
playing with ChatGPT every now and then to change a picture. But is a lot of your time explaining what the hell it can
Listen,
do?
I'm sitting right here, Dave. You don't have to make fun of me.
There's some
I'm right
people
here.
like Jay,
Hey,
but that's got to be a big piece of it, just starting from
Yeah,
scratch, right?
well, it is, and of course, it's sort of client dependent or school dependent. But yeah, I mean, part of the reason why we are so into the training and development space is exactly your point. Sometimes a company, best intentions, right? They want to bring in some AI training for their employees
Because it sounds cool.
because it sounds cool, right? It
well,
sounds cool, and
it's
people
supposed to be productive.
they're having
Yes,
the
right,
course.
people
right,
feel like they should be doing it, right? It
right.
feels like you're behind if you're not,
Yeah.
which isn't necessarily the case. So often those are very one-off sessions that
Mm,
you might have one session a year, and it's mostly focused on here's what AI is and
right.
here's what AI not is. And the hard part with those sessions is they're very, very surface level and they don't do anything to actually show how AI has an impact on real workflows and real problems. So for us, I think you're exactly right. There always needs to be sort of a baseline when we go in and share what AI is, and knowing that you're going to have some people who are really competent, really skillful with it, others who are skeptical, don't want anything to do with it. Try to create that baseline. But then for us, it's a matter of actually going in and using real tools. And what's nice about AI is because it's so quick, we can do we can build or do things in front of teachers based on real examples that come to us on the spot. We can help them build curriculum or presentations or videos in real time. And so for me, that's the way you really have to learn, is to get out of that little bubble, which is sometimes overly intimidating. People think like, do I need to know machine learning? Do I need to know computer science? Reality is what most of us mainly need to know is just how and why this works, and maybe where it can save us time, but also where it won't save us time, or where it's potentially dangerous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know you
No, I mean
mentioned
what you said earlier too about the having training and the one-off and actually someone that owns it. We years back at the very beginning of this, we bought an automation tool, right? It was supposed to save, our so much time, and
Yep.
it's going to come in. But what they didn't tell us was that, well, two things. A, you need someone to own it and actually run it. And how complicated it was. I mean, again, it was like one training course that did,
That sucked.
we didn't get it. We bought this thing, we never used it.
Right.
And I just feel like that's continuing, like, like you said, everybody needs AI because it's like you feel like you're falling behind if you don't, but no one really understands exactly what is it that we're
Right.
going to use it
Right.
with,
Right. Yeah, and how do we use it in our particular day-to-day work, right? It's
Yeah.
not this general sort of amorphous, yeah, you can use it to write emails, you can blah, blah, blah. That gets boring. And honestly, um, some of that writing stuff comes across as sort of corny or very clearly AI. AIE is the word I'll use that I made up to describe it. It feels very AI. But yeah, that piece is huge, because you have to build more of a infrastructure around AI to implement it. And that infrastructure includes culture, which is often forgotten about. We think of just, I need the technology, I want these outcomes, but the reality is I read a statistic recently. 75% of, I think it was, white collar workers in the United States bring their own AI tools to work. Only 30% of these organizations have actually trained for them. So right there, that's a big gap, and honestly a liability, right? If you don't,
Sure.
they call it shadow AI. If you don't know how or why your employees are using AI, it creates some risks. So often, that's one of the biggest challenges. Is we have actually people who know AI or have experimented with it a little bit, but are sort of in the shadows or in the dark, or afraid to talk too much about what it means to the larger business and organization, simply because of the scare stuff, right? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be automated out of here? That sort of thing. And so that's a piece that I like to focus on too with training and development, is that this sort of technology, for it to work well, it has to augment human ability. It will replace some humans, but the big thing is it needs to make humans better. Is sort of the short of it.
And tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's going anywhere.
It's not like the hula hoop. It's not just going to go away.
It's not a, I mean, it's not a fad. It's not a phase, right? It's not a fad.
Right.
It's going to
Right.
be here for a while.
It's not a Netflix subscription where we can just all turn it off, or
Yeah.
and it's funny you mentioned that, because I think that's also a really important thing to highlight, is that I tried to, when I got into AI, I tried to step back from being like, I didn't want to be the AI skeptic. I didn't want to be the AI proponent who pushes AI down everybody's throats. I didn't want to be the one who sort of dampens the excitement around it. I just tried to step back and really see it as just a tool, as just a technology. I think there are a lot of risks involved with any technology. I think there are some amazing benefits. And I think that's helped too in the training and development piece, because one of the first things I say is, truthfully, I'm not here to convince you to adopt AI. I'm showing you some strategies that might make your work and your workflows more meaningful to you.
Yep.
Are you seeing, Andrew, I know you brought up working with education, but the aerospace clients or other industries that you're supporting, are you seeing certain areas of the business where the demand is higher than others? Like, I guess when you guys come in, is it just ground up consulting? Where can we help you? Or do you guys drive a very focused delivery point to them too?
Yeah, it's funny. I would say manufacturing is probably our prime space. There's the Aerospace and Defense Consortium that we're part of. But what's interesting is when I started Northlight, I didn't really have necessarily manufacturing in mind. But now in hindsight, it's clear to me, at least, why that's one of the early adopters. Is you have a lot of legacy information, and a group of people who are soon to retire. There's big generational gaps between the old institutional knowledge that's leaving, some of the younger folks that are coming up. And there's a lot of like repeatable processes in manufacturing that AI is really good at. So it's both a scary thing for manufacturing, but ultimately, in my belief, a very good and positive thing, an exciting thing for manufacturing. And they seem to be the ones that are most interested in really investing in it beyond just like checking the box, right? There's some industries that, to be candid, we just have stayed away from just because we don't have enough clarity of sort of healthcare as an example, right? We're not healthcare experts. There's a lot that can go wrong with data and privacy if not used well in something like healthcare or financials. So I think a lot of those organizations are adopting it and working on it, but our company, Northlight, has mostly kind of shied away from those just because it's not that we're totally risk averse. It's just we don't have enough clarity or expertise in those areas to really help. So yeah, I would say manufacturing and just entrepreneurial ventures too. I mean, it sounds corny, but the reason I got so excited about AI is my parents were both small business owners. My dad passed away. My mom is a small business owner, and there are technologies now that can help these small businesses that were never available 10 years ago, that perhaps cost millions of dollars 10 years ago. And now we're seeing companies that can really build up their capabilities with these tools in great ways. So I really like working with the small businesses too, sort of a general group.
Yep.
Yeah.
From teachers to NASA and everything in between.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
couldn't be that's extremes, right?
It is. Yeah.
I mean,
but
what are the tools? I was going to say, Andrew, so you walk into a manufacturing facility. What is it that you're bringing? What is, for the layman here that's still trying to figure out AI? What is it that you go in and when you're done, there's something there that wasn't there before? What is that?
Yeah, so the key piece for me is one thing I always emphasize is that I find AI to be more effective not in creation, but in curation.
Yeah.
Oh,
We lost it. We
Andrew,
lost something.
We lost
Andrew's muted.
audio, Andrew.
Sorry, we'll get it back. We'll let you know when you come back.
He was just about to give the magic answer. It's going to solve the world's problems. And
AI
cut him off.
Yep, cut him off. Didn't want him to do it.
You
Sorry
see the
about
way
that,
AI
guys.
works?
I don't know what's going on. Let me try. Can you hear me?
We
can hear you now. You're a little
It's just
frozen.
Frozen, but we're here now. It'll come
Let me
back.
come right back.
We lost Andrew. That's
We
it.
want to thank Andrew as our guest today.
He
AI
said too
just
much.
eliminated Andrew. I think we've got to call somebody. Something just happened.
We should end this immediately. We're all next. We're all next.
I'm just kidding. We're not doing anything with AI. We're going back. We're not going to touch anything.
Skynet heard us talking.
Yeah, he was just about to give the magic answer that would solve everyone's problems.
He'll come back. He'll be fine.
Poor Andrew.
It's all right. That's right. Here he comes. Admit him in. Oh, that's fantastic.
Hey, when you're live, you got to be ready for these things.
But here's the thing: is this really Andrew, or are we getting AI Andrew back? That's the big question.
Yeah, this is my avatar. Can you hear me?
This is your avatar. It looks much better.
We were saying you were just about to give the answer, and then AI cut you right out.
I was gonna say the conspiratorial part of me thinks that I got edited out by sort of general intelligence over everything.
We were taken up.
No, I'm not sure what happened there.
But here's the thing: when you left, our viewership went up. We were, I don't understand it. Boom!
Yeah.
I have that effect. I go into a hotel and I get a whole floor to myself. I love it. No, I think I was. I don't know exactly when I got cut off, but I was talking about the idea of curation versus creation.
Yeah, right there. That's when you said
when it comes to AI. And for me, that's the real superpower of AI is that curation part where it can take really thousands or millions of disparate types of information, not just text, but video. It can take image, it can take audio, and truly transform it into something very coherent that almost anybody can access with just natural language. And so for manufacturers in particular, it's often a really easy starting point is just sort of building out their, what's the word I'm looking? Their standard processes in a way that's accessible to all, helping them curate all of these pieces of information together into one portal that isn't just like an 80-page handbook of this is what you need to do to work here, but you can actually tailor it to specific roles within the organization or the manufacturer. Um, and that tends to be sort of an easy low-hanging fruit, as they say early on. And then from there, I think those are what you always want to start with. I'm always wary of companies or organizations that want to transform right from the get-go because they typically don't fully understand the company or the industry or the larger context. So starting with something small like that, it might even just be as simple as we've created a 24/7 chatbot that speaks in 100 languages and can help your customers navigate your website. That can be a big lift for many clients. And then we grow from there, typically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because how do you advertise your business other than LinkedIn? I mean, it's the marketing of it has got to be difficult.
It is difficult. And actually I would say that's one that's one of our biggest weaknesses. We've been fortunate in some ways that the business was sort of just just through work and circumstance was sort of built into a lot of what we were doing. We had longer term projects, and so we could afford to sort of turn our eye away from that piece. But it's a huge challenge because uh, AI means something different to everybody, and it should. And some people, as we've talked about, some people they instantly want to cover their ears when they hear about it. Other people want to get into a specific area that maybe we're not going to cover or talk about. So it's a challenge. So the way I typically do that, and this is not, I'm by no means any great marketer, but I always start with forget about the technology. What are the problems you're facing today? If you had a magic wand, what are three things you would solve today? Um, and typically through that conversation, something comes up, and then I can bring in the technology and say, here's how we'd solve that. So if it's a company saying, we get 10,000 customer inquiries a month, we can't respond to all of them, we can't scale up our hiring, we can build a system that helps answer 90% of those, leaving the 10% that are more complicated or tricky for the actual humans to deal with. Uh, so yeah, it's really challenging. I think one of the things we've talked about and we have to think about is how we articulate what we do in our marketing and how we share that with
And how you and the cost.
the
Because again,
cost. Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like you're going to buy a car and you know how much a Nissan
Oh,
is versus a Toyota versus there's what the AI world and buying what you're buying. I mean, we as a staffing company that we own, the amount of tools that have been sold to
yes.
Jay and I over the past year and a half. Buy this, buy
Yeah.
this, buy this. We don't know what it's worth because there's nothing to compare it to. Every
Right.
AI
Right.
thing is doing something different. If you'd walk into a company and say, "This is what we're going to charge you," how does that school or how does that manufacturing company know? Well, we'll just compare what Northern's doing to
Yeah.
who, because it's all
Right.
very unique. So, you just pick a price out of thin air and say, "This is what we're going to charge you." It's a tough thing to market.
It is a
Um,
very tough thing. And what we've found, and I actually agree with the decision makers here, is that people are often very interested early on in having the conversation, but sort of clam up a little bit when it comes time to spending money. And I
right.
totally understand that because, as you said, it can be very, very difficult to say, is this just sort of an exercise in us chasing a current trend or something, or is this going to have real value?
Value. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so that part is really challenging. I do think the training and development piece though can help with that because they're just paying to sort of to learn about the systems and the work we do, but then they're also seeing those real life examples, and they on their own can start connecting the dots of, you know, this is how maybe we could use their services to help us with something. But it's tough, and I one of the biggest challenges, truthfully, is how quickly AI moves.
Yeah.
Um, because we've signed contracts and projects that um, as we're working on them, something changes in the AI space that makes us either able to complete it much quicker. Actually, it actually saves us a lot of time and effort. Something was automated that didn't exist before, or alternatively, it actually makes it more difficult to build or use what it is we're trying to do. So that part's hard to keep up with. And I think most people are just have that fatigue of like, I can't hear about another tool. I
Right.
can't hear
That's
another
us.
false promise. Yeah,
That's us in the fatigue.
That's
I mean, although ironically, the last tool we bought, I think, has been the best. It's a note taker kind of thing,
Hmm.
right? You're on the phone and it transcribes and it automatically puts the notes in a format that we create in the database. I find it amazingly useful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's simple, and what I think the best part about it is it's easy to use.
Yes.
It's simple, right? You just
Yes.
hit a button on the phone, you talk to someone, and then 2 minutes later, the whole conversation's in your thing. You don't have to type anything. The rest of the
Right.
tools we've used, we've kind of lost a lot, because
Yeah.
of the adoption, as you were talking about, the training, and some of them are just too complicated.
Right.
So I do think some of these, as they get more sophisticated and they get easy to use, the adoption will be much greater.
100. Yeah. 100%. I mean, I think even look at the Chat GPT sort of explosion is that was more of a UX UI revolution than it was maybe a technology revolution. We've had AI for a while, but it wasn't accessible or easily usable. And now suddenly we can, almost anybody for 20 bucks a month or even free can chat in natural language. So I agree with you 100%. I think the biggest challenge now is the way I sort of say it is the technology itself or the platforms themselves are no longer necessarily the moat of what keeps a business going. It's the actual how easy do you make it? What's the user process and user experience? Because people have less patience for these really clunky old systems as they should.
Right.
And so I love the note-taking apps, and that's a classic example of how you can really curate good information. That used to be lost in the ether, right? Unless you had a transcription service, it gets lost. But now you're curating these transcripts, you're turning it into some sort of structured data that you can then use to make decisions going forward. And so those are great. Those are really great use cases, and actually probably the best way to start with using some of these tools is just use one or two.
Yeah.
Don't try to eat the whole mountain of ice cream, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
all got Ricky and myself and Jay. We've got three seniors that are about to go to college in the fall. And I don't know what the colleges are doing when it comes to introducing AI to, other than telling the students, don't you dare use AI to write your reports. Don't pass anything in, we'll be able to tell. But other than that is, what kind of curricular work is in the colleges right now teaching kids about how to use it? If there is any,
Yeah.
And are there systems in place where they're actually checking? I know they can threaten that they will, but
right? Right.
It's so funny. I was at a coffee shop last week and I heard, the student baristas who were working there were kind of complaining about a professor they had, and the professor said something along the lines of, "Don't you dare use AI, I can tell when you cheat." And the student quipped, "Well, no, you can't. You gave me 100 on my last."
Yeah.
um, and so
Let's test that theory.
Yeah.
so
Right.
let's just so there are systems that are just really not accurate. That's part of the problem too. A lot of these AI detectors are just not really that accurate, or they penalize certain groups over others. Like English as second language tends to flag the AI plagiarism things a little bit more aggressively. It's a huge problem, I think, because I mean, like just think about an online course, right? You can now set up an agent to complete a 12-week course for you. You don't even have to be there. It'll write the discussion posts. It'll use
Where
your
was that
voice.
when I was in
Yeah.
college?
Right. And so that's a challenge. But on the flip side, if I'm a university student and I'm not being taught these things, or if I'm being shielded away from some of this potential, that I think that's a huge disservice
Right.
Right.
because we know this AI literacy and understanding how to use these tools. I mean, you probably see it more than anybody. Those are going to be the difference makers often for jobs and careers and hiring is just being able to adapt to new technology, use it safely, learn it. And so I think it's just I don't know the answer for that piece. Higher education moves so slowly.
Mm.
But I do think it's going to have a massive, massive disruption, even more than we can even tell right now, as more and more people use it and figure out how to use it. And I don't know what that means. I truly don't. I mean, I I I hear the joke all the time. I'm not sure if I want to be the patient working with the ChatGPT brain surgeon, right? Sort
Right.
of an extreme example, but I
But you
think
also
that's a
said,
challenge.
and you're not wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
my daughter's going to graduate from college in 2030. Whatever the hell they're using for AI right now, compared to when I'm 60, throw me under a bridge. Jesus, 60. I mean, it's going to be, she's going to be putting me into a home using AI. But I mean, it's going to be a
Yeah,
much different world of AI in 4 years, and it's going to be a different world at the end of this year.
it
Yeah.
You
is.
said
Yeah,
it's.
it is.
I think a year ago we thought it was cute to use ChatGPT to make pictures, and Jay and I still think that's
Yeah,
cute and fantastic because
yeah.
that's what we like. But where this is going to go in the next, no, it's going to be incredibly different than what
It's
it
Well,
going
I
to
is.
think you're
be
right, Andrew, on the whole adoption piece. Like, yeah, we can't have teachers pretending it doesn't exist.
Right.
Like, that
while
doesn't make
while they're
sense.
using it to check, right? At the same
well,
time.
Right,
right,
right, right.
right,
So, as much as this is going to be a challenge, they're going to somehow kind of get it introduced into the curriculum. Like, this is how you do use it, and because I think Tyler, who's at UNH, actually, my daughter's about to go to UNH, so I'm going to have 8 years of UNH on my resume. I probably should be like on the board of trustees or something, right? Do I get a
yeah,
volume discount for having two in a row?
yeah, yeah.
But he's had courses where the professors have they're educated. They're actually having them use AI as part of the process, which is good, right? Because you don't want them graduating having no idea, but that's unrealistic because every job they go into, they're going to probably use it, right?
Right,
So let's have them understand how to use it.
right.
But it is
That's
tricky because, like you said,
it,
but we can't go to the old. I'm going to have the chatbot do the whole online course for 12. That's
it
no good either. So how
exactly,
do we get in the middle
exactly.
there?
And how do you create some sort of governance that sort of impacts all the different departments and people and majors, equally, but also differently? It's really tough. I've thought a lot about the education piece, partly because we do a lot of work in higher ed and K through 12, but one of the central tensions, I think, is that education relies on some good, what I'll call good friction, right? We know that learning requires some struggle. It requires some sort of recursiveness where you go down this path, it's not quite right. You come back, you try another path. Whereas AI is built to reduce friction entirely, to remove as much friction as possible. So at some point, I think schools and higher ed, they're really going to have a conversation around how do we get students to use AI to maybe replace some of that mechanical thinking, but not the cognitive thinking, the cognitive piece. And I'm glad I don't have to solve that problem immediately. It's really, really hard. But I do find that, and some of the research shows this out, students aren't relying on it as heavily as you might think just for cheating. The reality is there's we need to start thinking about, you know, what are we teaching students, right? If we're just teaching students, for example, when I grew up, I had to memorize the capitals of 50 states. Rote memorization is going to become far, far less important than sort of that more nebulous critical thinking of being able to see both sides of an issue or something like that. And I have no idea how it will change things, but it certainly will.
Gone off on a half-hour tangent. We were starting to talk about what Northlight does, and then we started going off on another tangent. We
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I think a good
Actually, I want to go
step,
back to the beginning.
step.
How did you decide to start your own thing? Like, was there a light bulb moment? Was it like, okay, today I'm doing it? Like, I'm always fascinated by how people decide to start a business.
So I was at the time I was working at the Center for Business Analytics at the University of New Hampshire, and I sort of self I sort of pushed myself into the position of learning anything and everything about AI as I could. Always been interested in the technology, more in the theoretical aspects. And so, truthfully, I put together sort of a proposal for a proposed like AI innovation lab, a space where students and faculty could come together and think through some of these challenges, think through some of these tools. But um, it was too early for the university at that point where I worked. And so I thought, well, I really like the work I'm doing at this university. I'm working with students. We're exploring brand new use cases. We're building things truly like in record time. Some of the stuff we were building was incredible because of these tools. And so I just sort of decided I need to, if I'm going to do this, I can't be in it, can't dip my toes in the water. I have to fully commit. And so part of it was truly the genesis of just like I want to learn as much as possible and help as much as possible. And then it's a matter, as you know, is I had to make sure we had the right co-founders so that our skills complement each other. That's a challenge too, because AI is with AI especially, it's very, very easy to be fooled into thinking somebody is an expert, right? You can create that polish and that veneer of expertise very easily with AI. And that's a risk. And honestly, I think that's why so many organizations and businesses are skeptical of it, is because of how easy it is to create that polish. But anyway, we just said, we want to be working in this space. We want to be showing, especially at the time, small businesses how to use these tools. And then from there, it grew more away from just the consulting piece, which is where we started, and more into really structured, specific build outs that we were able to we really focused on what's the ROI here. So our big thing was it's just as important to say don't use AI as it is to say use AI in
Right.
certain circumstances. And we try to treat it that way, and that's kind of how we've done it. But it's been a few years now, and we alluded to this earlier. I mean, we're not marketing guys necessarily. And so there's still so much that we have to figure out with our own business and just the operations piece that I sort of took for granted when I worked for these other companies or organizations.
No sales team in place yet.
Yeah, exactly, right. So you really, I do feel like it's like sometimes I'm doing research on the most cutting edge computer vision model of what AI is doing, and other times I'm ordering pens and rubber bands for the office, right? It's like the classic founder thing but I really like that. I do recognize as we grow into our third year, there's more of that operational structure that we need. We've like I said, we've been lucky. We've had some really good projects come to us that have paid the bills and taken a lot of time and brain power. So we've sort of been able to just focus on that building side rather
Did I
than
see you guys hiring interns every now and then as well? Yeah.
yeah.
Good,
So
good.
we're hiring. Last summer we hired 4 university students, and this summer we're going to hire probably
Only from
four.
only from UNH?
Well, it's funny you say that. So, no, actually, the first cycle of hiring, we ended up hiring 6 students from around the country.
Okay.
And it was shocking because this was before we were even really established. And I sort of put out a call for applications for internships, and we got like 300 applications from around
Really?
the country.
Wow.
And what clicked in my brain was students are very, very hungry for good experiential learning. Not just experiential learning in the sense of fill out this spreadsheet, go get this coffee,
Yeah.
etc., but building new projects, really playing with new technologies. So yeah, that's one of the things I loved about working at the university was working with students, and it's nice. You can bring together an English major with a computer scientist, with a statistician, and it's kind of unique to universities, right? That you have all this expertise, PhD programs, all of this stuff you have right there. And so yeah, we hired 4. Last summer it was just from UNH. The nature of that was because we needed in-person time. We needed at least 3 days in the office. But those students, they did fantastic, and they worked on these real projects with us. Obviously they have oversight,
Yep.
but they were building real products which now exist in the world and which were actually used by these companies. So those are the experiences that students really, really are drawn to, I think.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's great. How'd you come up with the name Northlight?
That is a good, gosh, I think I can't even remember to be honest. I think part of
Use
it was,
ChatGPT.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
yeah.
good name for it, that's it.
no, you know what? I'm sure I used actually ChatGPT. I've done this with other products to think of brainstorm names or to think through different words or connotations or those sorts of things. I think it was honestly a very practical piece where I had seen something, a quote, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but essentially along the lines of technology really needs a sort of guiding light, a guiding principle more than ever, right? It needs that. So we kind of positioned it as Northlight, North Star. And truthfully, I just liked that it was 2 syllables, Northlight.
Yeah.
And the domain existed. I mean, some of that sounds ridiculous, but there's those practical considerations.
That's
I don't know. No,
sometimes a good
the
challenge.
domain being available is a huge part of it.
Right. Yeah.
No, we know that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how it came about. But we've talked internally as a group about the fact that so our name right now is Northlight AI, which in some ways I don't think actually speaks to everything we do. We do a lot in analytics. And part of the reason we have that AI in there, truthfully, is because that it is the buzzword. It is the hot thing right now. And we're very good at that piece. But we've also talked about potentially rebranding to like a lab, more like a Northlight lab or something like that. So we're not as exclusionary with some of the other work we do. Because the reality is most of what people call artificial intelligence, and this is just my feeling, is not actually AI.
Right.
It's analysis, it's spreadsheet stuff, it's automations, it's not actually truly artificial intelligence. So yeah, that's the weird, confusing legacy of or genesis of our name, Northlight AI, how it came about.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I know you asked earlier at the very beginning about the hiring landscape in this, and I guess Ricky, I'll throw
Yeah.
that to you. What are you seeing out there in the world of AI and
Well,
robotics?
big part is that there's more demand than supply right now, in a lot of the areas too, right? And
Wow.
I think it's just part of the we brought up the new shiny object in the room for most and trying to identify areas of the business that they can actually implement it. And I was talk more on that as far as the engineering talent. But I wanted to ask a question earlier, Andrew, just as far as, I think at one of the AI New Hampshire events, you referenced kind of internal champions, right? Having
Yeah.
an employee be the driver and like who's going to be the first person, whether is it coming from the top or is it someone, as an individual contributor that sees value and where they can implement it. And do you see any hesitation? I think you touched on it already of, is it going to take my job? And we'll call it that big elephant in the room, right? I think everybody is worried about that and maybe there's hesitancy to bring it in, knowing that. But I'm just curious as you meet with these teams, like if that's something that you're hearing internally, and I know we touched on data privacy, that's a big part of it, but for the areas or businesses that don't have as much concern on that, is what are you hearing on your end as far as the employees reluctant to bring in new systems or whether it's Gen
Yeah.
AI, agentic?
Um, I would say so. Yeah, you're exactly right there. And I would say what we're really seeing is that most of the reluctance or resistance actually comes more because of a communication breakdown. So what happens at the top is these organizations are looking to implement or explore AI, but they don't fully understand how or why yet. So they don't articulate it to the employees, who then feel like, okay, now there's this secretive sort of thing materializing underneath all of our technology. Is this coming for our jobs, etc.? So one of the big things right off the bat is having leadership clearly define what is okay to use. I mean, that can go a long way, right? Sometimes employees don't even know, can I use ChatGPT? Can I use Claude? In what circumstances? But once they know that there's some clarity from management about this is why we're using it, this is how we're using it, um, adoption truly becomes much easier. And I think back to one example without naming a specific company, but this woman was very nervous because about 20 hours a week she spent on normalizing these huge Excel data sets, and really manual work. And we come in to build this automation that essentially does that in 10 to 15 minutes. So you can understand why she would be concerned. Oh my gosh, here's 20 hours of but the reality is what actually happened is that work wasn't doing the service to all the information she knew. She was able to shift away from some of that and suddenly had 20 hours more a week on strategic work or on bigger picture stuff. So it's a communication thing, and I'm seeing more and more organizations opening themselves up to it. I think the internal champions that I always mention is again, if 75% of people are using AI in your organization, don't make them hide in the shadows. Tell them, why don't you be on the cutting edge of what we do and how we explore our own governance, how we explore our own use cases. It's exciting for them. They feel like they can take on a new challenge and help the company, but it also doesn't put other people too early into like test and try out. Not everybody needs to dive in day one into using AI. So we recognize there's no way you can sort of, even with training and development, come as an outside agency or outside group and catch everybody up to speed, you need to build it from within and grow that culture from within. And so I think it's my long-winded way of saying, Ricky, um, it, more and more organizations are open to it, um, as long as from the top there's some clarity and some truth around why and how they're planning to use it.
Right. And I think again back to the supply and demand piece around, one, companies defining truly what areas they need these specialists in, but as you mentioned too, the culture behind it sometimes it takes, maybe if it isn't an internal employee, a consultant to come in, right, and be able to offer services, a Northlight, or if it's just an individual, whatever it may be, for someone to come in and help kind of brainstorm and give that consulting perspective around workflows that could support it. Maybe it is sales and marketing first, and they need to, we referenced our CRM. Maybe we're starting there, or beyond it as you get into more application development. And I think that's one interesting piece of it as well, is that we've seen a lot of startups produced because of AI. All of a sudden,
Yeah,
we have
right.
folks that have never created an app before or have a business in mind suddenly, getting off the ground quicker, creating code, creating an application, whatever it may be, and suddenly getting a ton of attention in the market. So there's a lot of interesting angles to take on it, but that's one where, again, for companies to be able to come in and take the consultation, if there's an area they've already identified, obviously in our business, being able to staff contractors, bring in consultants to come in and be the driver, but at the same time, look at as a potential long-term fit as well. So when we talk culture and trying to implement those strategies and workflows and so on these teams, we can bring in somebody for them to help, support that as well. So, and I think also too is what is an AI engineer for a lot of companies?
Right.
We know
Right.
we need it, but what is that? And again, it's created there's this cluster still out there, whether it's ML, LLM, data science, product engineers, so on and so on, and they just don't know where to start. So again, being the new shiny object in the room everybody wants to chase, it's getting a more defined plan. And I think just having these conversations more fluidly, being open to speaking to a Northlight or an Edge, and the teams that are out there, saturating the market and talking to these, this talent pool, and the service providers out there that can come in and help put a plan in place is the biggest recommendation right now. I think a lot of companies know that they want AI capability, but they don't always really understand what the role actually is or where to start or anything like that.
Right.
So just take the step in the right direction, have the conversations would be my recommendation, and it sounds like that's what you've been voicing to the market as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Is we sort of see ourselves, we help stand these things up. The organization, though, has to, if they want to adopt AI, the organization has to adopt AI. It can't just
Yeah.
be solely an outside external force. It has to be truly thinking about workflows, thinking about people. How do we actually want to do this, and why? Sometimes just finding out your why is 90% of the battle. Not because
Yeah.
I feel like I should, but because we're too slow to respond to customers, as an example, or something like that. The more specific those companies are, usually they can find the benefit much, much quicker.
Yeah, right. The why can't be, well, because I feel like I'm supposed to, because everyone else is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be a mid part of the mission of what you're doing. Yeah, the communication part, that's a struggle always, right?
Yeah.
Communication in companies, it's one of the number one big breakdowns from top to bottom. And this is just going to make that even more complicating,
Yes.
the AAPs, because there's fear around it. It's not just, oh, hey, we forgot to tell everyone we have Monday off. I mean, this is like, hey, this is how we're going to use this product, or how we're going to integrate AI.
Right.
And that's going to be really complicated. So you'll probably have even another opportunity from a consulting level. It's almost like a management consulting piece
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
business.
Right. Yeah. That's one of our, that's a big piece of it for sure.
Yeah, because the hand holding that you need to do with these clients, you're not just going in and leaving. I mean, they're
Right.
relying on you to
Right.
get them through the stuff they don't understand. So it's a process.
It is. It is.
Don't just leave us, Andrew.
Yeah.
Thanks for teaching us, but tell me you're available that I can talk to anytime
Oh,
because we
yeah.
don't know what the hell we're doing. So
Exactly. And I honestly think you probably saw that viral article maybe 6 months ago or a year ago about from MIT saying that a lot of something like 90% of AI initiatives were not increasing or not having a positive financial impact. The reason for that, and people kind of freaked out around that, but the reason for that is because again, you can't just plug this thing in day one and walk away. You really have to invest in the idea and be behind it and have people behind it. So the more, for example, the more like with you all and placing employees, the more they already have some of this experience and this knowledge and understanding of what AI is good at, not good at. I mean, that's a huge benefit to any organization who maybe just needs that sort of spark to help
Right.
ignite everybody else.
Yep.
Awesome.
I'm still
So
gonna
we
just
AI'd
play.
ourselves out.
I'm still gonna just play on ChatGPT and do pictures. That's all I'm doing.
It's getting, I would recommend Nano Banana now if you want pictures.
There you go.
Ooh, what? What?
Write it
Google
down.
too. Google has Nano Banana. I know, ridiculous name, but it is pretty amazing.
No banana. Ricky, you're gonna make fun of me because I don't know what that is. You probably already know what that is.
Listen, there's every minute there's a new one popping up. It's hard.
There
to
is.
believe.
Yeah.
I'm writing it down now. Nano.
Check it out. You can do infograph. You can do all sorts of stuff. Text, things that didn't exist
Wow.
6 months ago.
But you've mentioned this, and this is Jay and I are proof that this has happened, and Ricky has seen it. Is that you go in and you show these companies what the tool does, and it's like, holy shit. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't take long for you to realize. And so, yes, you might have to learn how you're going to implement it, but once you can just see the results that quickly, it's
Exactly.
like, come on. This is
Exactly.
and you can get lost in, well, how does that work? I don't know. I don't care about the behind the scenes stuff. Right.
Right.
I don't need
Right.
to know how ChatGPT knew how to make Jay and I look like we were in a South Park show and make a cartoon out of it.
Exactly.
I don't need to know. It just
Right.
knows. But the instant result is just ridiculous about how
Yeah.
fast you can see how it's going to affect how you work, how you do this, how you do that. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I like to joke with companies when we go in that how many people know mechanically how a telephone works?
Right. Right.
The reality is
I don't know how a light bulb works.
And how
Yeah.
many of you and how many of you want to know? how
yeah,
that's
exactly.
the
But
thing. I
it
don't
doesn't
give a shit.
mean the business shouldn't use it.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that's a big piece to emphasize. You're exactly right, is that most of the actual custom AI sort of discrete model building, that's a very small piece of the pie.
Mhm.
A bigger piece is just being able to adapt and grow and think with this tool. It's not, you don't need to know all the training sets that went into it, or I mean, it can help. I'm not saying, I'm not promoting plugging your ears and not learning anything about the tech of AI, but it's not the most important thing for most use cases, for probably
Right.
95% of use cases. It's just, how is this actually going to help my client? Where could it hurt my clients or customers? I need to know both sides. And I think that honesty is a piece that isn't emphasized enough as part of what we do at Nordflight. We have to go in and say, I know you have this grand idea about what you want to do, but here are some of the risks of what can happen in terms of trust with customers or something like that. So you don't necessarily, as I think my dad used to say, the old line, like, if I ask you for the time, I don't need to know how the clock was built,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I think that's some similar to some of this AI stuff. And by the way, we were joking earlier about how the trash truck always comes right during
Is
these
it-
podcasts in my neighborhood. It has
Right
pulled
on
up for
time.
the second time.
Luckily, can't hear
I'm
it.
being pranked.
Yeah,
I think
we
Ricky
can't
set me up or
Can't hear it.
something here.
That's funny.
Uh,
So the trucks come twice. You got cut off. I'd be careful.
You're on the
There's
radar,
something
yeah.
that comes-
Yeah. Why is the trash coming twice?
I know. I feel like
that's-
this is like season 3 of Sopranos or something. Very bad.
Oh man. All right. Well, we filled an hour, almost an hour. We didn't know we would. We knew we would.
Could probably fill a few more. There's just so
Yeah.
many questions around it. I think that's the exciting piece too, because it's just
Yeah.
everyone's learning more each day by the minute, and the
Yeah.
conversations won't slow.
We'll
Right.
jump back on at 4 o'clock and see how much has changed in
Yeah.
4 hours.
I'll have a full beard by then. I'll have different hair color.
We should
No,
just
I'll
be able
just
to
send my
figure out how to do.
avatar.
We should be able to figure out how to just have 4 avatars do this for us and not us. I mean, that's
Oh, we will.
it's
that's-
got to be.
So I
That's
got
the
to
next
briefly
one.
I got to briefly mention because I think you'll appreciate this. So I was part of a group, and I won't say the company's name, but one of their big things was creating hyper realistic avatars of people, and which is great. I've actually built out a custom avatar of myself. It's way smarter than I am. It can speak 100 languages, does all these sorts of things. But in this very sort of this roundtable of how this technology was used, the company talked about how they were pushing this new feature where you could send your agent to Zoom calls on your behalf.
Oh, God.
And I pushed back on that a lot because to me that was like, yeah, okay, it sort of sounds cool, but in a practical sense, I was like, if I'm on the other side of that, if I find out I showed up in person for a 30-minute meeting
With a
and at
fake
the end I
person.
realized it was just an AI avatar, that business is dead to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah,
Right?
right.
So this
And
isn't a good
Wow.
time to tell you that's not really Ricky.
well,
The
that's,
beard, the trees and the whole thing. It's
Yeah,
he's doing 100 podcasts at once.
yeah.
But it's funny because it came out after they released it, they got a ton of pushback and they had to kind of rethink like, yeah, okay, technically it's cool that we can do that. We can have this avatar go, but is that actually helping in an operations or business way?
Right,
I would argue most of the time, especially if used incorrectly, it's not. You
right.
lose
right.
customer trust, you lose partner trust. At the end of the day, when I go onto a Zoom and I'm talking to somebody, I really want to make sure I'm talking to a real human, unless
Mm.
it's 500 person Zoom or something.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, those human relationship pieces really matter, and I think that's what I mean by some of those risk reward aspects
Mhm.
of I know it might be nice to never attend a Zoom meeting again and just get the notes afterwards, but here's the sort of damage that might happen if
Yeah.
you push too hard on that.
Yeah.
And we're hearing horror stories. I mean, Jay, you brought it up, Brad, as far as clients interviewing avatars and not
Fake
Yeah.
people.
real people on the other end of the computer. So again, now that just creates more opportunity for new software, right? Other startups to come in and create and I know there's already ones out there that exist, but that will just continue to evolve to make sure that you are talking to a real person on the other end. And I think everybody has the idea of how to call out what could be an avatar, but
Yeah,
for most people that it's new to, you could go through a 30-minute, initial interview or
yeah.
tech interview and be completely thrown off guard. So
In
Yeah.
fact, there's a video from Salesforce where they were interviewing an engineer for some role, and everything looked legit to me. But at one point, the HR, the technical recruiter, just said something along the lines of, "I know this is going to sound weird, but can you just hold a piece of paper up around your face?" And so the person was confused, and then they quickly X'd out of the call. And the
Oh,
idea was is that just that simple, I don't know if this still works, but at the time, this putting the paper up disrupted the visual overlay or the avatar piece enough where this recruiter could sense that. But yeah, you're exactly right. And I honestly, I think not to plug you guys too hard and over the top, but that's why you need specialists like you all is because there is more risk now to sort of hiring outside of your area of expertise. It's easier to fake interviews, to fake experience, and so partnering makes a lot of sense because that can be sussed out early. Real human, the talent is built as it should be on real human relationships and all of that. But
And for
it's
and
a
for
it's
us,
Wild
weeding
West.
through, which has become the norm now, the fake profiles on
Oh
LinkedIn, the
yeah,
fake jobs, it's just crazy.
but this is
Uh,
that on steroids. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like fake
right.
resume is one thing. A
yeah.
whole person
A
talking
full
that's
whole
not
person
real is
talk,
another.
right?
You know.
And think about how costly one hire, right? Because probably at an organization like Salesforce, even if you figure it out early, it's going to be 6 or 7 or 8 months before you can really fully do anything about it.
Right.
You've gone through
right.
the training, this person's remote. So you have these people who can collect huge salaries, not contribute, which damages, cascades through the whole
Mm.
organization. It's really important to realize that people are clever with
Yeah.
this now. They're really, really clever. And you need to watch for it.
Yeah.
All right. Us recruiters love to plug that, the human element doesn't disappear for our industry. It's
Right.
needed. That's why I think again, the scare tactic of is AI taking our jobs? I think for every department, every industry, there's always areas that could potentially see it. But as far as the recruiter interaction, the human interaction, going down the, grabbing lunch, coffee, doing virtual
Right.
calls, whatever it may be, there's, that's not eliminating us, which for our
Yeah.
talent
And,
viewers
and I
out there, just to put you, at ease, I think we're okay.
I think it'll only become more important. I truly believe that. And not
Yeah.
just because I'm on your podcast, which would be easy to say, but I do think that specialists and especially in recruiting and placement, specialists are going to become more and more important because your traditional HR teams, they have no idea how much is possible or how much can be automated or done. And so working with somebody who knows the systems, knows the technology, and understands, like you, Ricky, that, this is what these organizations really need. It's still built on the premise of human to human relationships. That's how these organizations will succeed.
And that covers the agreed upon number of times you'd plug Edge on this
I was going to say
podcast.
that we can end it now. He checked every box,
yeah.
right?
He snuck it all in right at the end. So
He
we're
said it
good.
right at the end. What else are we going to do?
I think the garbage truck's coming back again. You really need to get out of there.
If I cut out this time, just call for help.
Oh man. All right, this has been great.
Awesome.
This
This
has
has
been
been
awesome.
great. Yeah, thanks for talking to us like we're five. 'Cause
Yes.
I understood everything you
Seriously,
said.
no.
It's
That's exactly
fantastic.
what we needed.
No, I,
That's
I
great.
appreciate the invitation and really glad to talk. And it's also interesting hearing how you're seeing it on your side, especially with you, Ricky, on this tech piece with Edge staffing.
Appreciate
Because
you
I
welcoming
don't necessarily get to see that as much.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, Andrew.
This is
Thanks for
great,
your
Andrew. I'm
time.
sure we'll do it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Mr.
Changes
Mitchell.
enough.
All right, see you at 4:00, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Thanks,
Good luck with the
guys.
garbage truck. Yeah. We'll
Yeah, all right.
Thanks, everybody.
Take
All right,
care,
we'll see
guys.